Adonai said to Moshe, "Set aside for me all the firstborn, whether is from the womb among the people of Israel, both of humans and of animals, belongs to me." Moshe said to the people, "Remember this day on which you left Egypt, the abode of slavery, because Adonai, by the strength of his hand, has brought you out of this place. Do not eat hamatz. You are leaving today in the month of Aviv, when Adonai brings you into the land of Canaani, Hitti, Emori, Hivi, and Uvizi, which he swore to your ancestors to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey. You are to observe this ceremony in this month. For 7 days you are to eat matzah, and the seventh day is to be the festival to Adonai. Matzah is to be eaten throughout the 7 days. Neither hamatz nor leavening agents are to be seen with you throughout your territory. On that day you are to tell your son, 'It is because of what Adonai did for me when I left Egypt.' Moreover, it will serve you as a sign on your hand and as a reminder between your eyes, so that Adonai's Torah may be on your lips, because with a strong hand Adonai brought you out of Egypt. Therefore you are to observe this regulation at its proper time, year after year. When Adonai brings you into the land of the Canaani, as he swore to you and your ancestors, and gives it to you, you are to set apart for Adonai everything that is first from the womb. Every firstborn male animal will belong to Adonai. Every firstborn from a donkey you are to redeem with a lamb. But if you choose not to redeem it, you must break its neck. But from people you are to redeem every firstborn son. When, at some future time, your son asks you, 'What is this?' then say to him, 'With a strong hand Adonai brought us out of Egypt, out of the abode of slavery. When Pharaoh was unwilling to let us go, Adonai killed all the firstborn males in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of humans and the firstborn of animals. This is why I sacrifice to Adonai any male that is first from the womb of the animal. But all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. This will serve as a sign on your hand and at the front of your headband around your forehead. With a strong hand Adonai brought us out of Egypt." After Pharaoh had let the people go, God did not guide them to the highway that goes through the land of Plishtim, because it was close by. God thought that the people, upon seeing war, might change their minds and return to Egypt. Rather, God led the people by a roundabout route through the desert by the Sea of Suf. The people of Israel went up from the land of Egypt fully armed. Moshe took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the people of Israel swear an oath when he said, "God will certainly remember you, and you will carry my bones up with you away from here." They traveled from Sukkot and set up camp in Etam at the edge of the desert. Adonai went ahead of them in a column of cloud during the daytime to lead them on their way, and at night in a column of fire to give them light. Thus they could travel both day and by night. Neither the column of cloud by day nor the column of fire at night went away from in front of the people. Adonai said to Moshe, "Tell the people of Israel to turn away and set up camp in front of Pi Hakorat, between Migdol and the sea, in front of Baal Zephon. Camp opposite by the sea. Then Pharaoh will say that the people of Israel are wandering aimlessly in the courtside. The desert was closed in on them. I will make Pharaoh so hard-hardened that he will pursue them. Thus I will win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and all his army. And the Egyptians will realize at last that I am Adonai." The people did as ordered. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his servants had changed of heart toward the people. They said, "What have we done, letting Israel stop being our slaves?" So he prepared his chariots and took his people with him. He took 600 first-quality chariots, as well as all the other chariots in Egypt, along with their commanders. Adonai made Pharaoh hard-hearted, and he pursued the people of Israel as they left boldly. The Egyptians went after them, all the horses and the chariots of Pharaoh, with his cavalry and army, and overtook them as they were encamped by the sea, by Pi-hahiroth, in front of Baal-Zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up and saw the Egyptians right there, coming after them. In great fear, the people of Israel cried out to Adonai and said to Moshe, "Was it because there wasn't enough graves in Egypt that you brought us out to die in the desert? Why have you done this to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we tell you in Egypt to let us alone? We'll just go on to die in the desert?" Moshe answered the people, "Stop being so fearful. Remain steady. You will see how Adonai is going to save you. He will do it today. Today you have seen the Egyptians, but you will never see them again. Adonai will do battle for you. Just calm yourselves down." Adonai asked Moshe, "Why are you crying to me?" "Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift your staff. Reach out with your hand over the sea and divide it in two. The people of Israel will advance into the sea on dry ground. As for me, I will make the Egyptians hard-hearted, and they will march in after them. Thus, I will win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and all his army, chariots, and cavalry. Then the Egyptians will realize that I am Adonai, when I have won myself glory at the expense of Pharaoh, his chariots, and his cavalry." Next, the angel of God who was going ahead of the camp of Israel moved away and went behind them, and a column of cloud moved away from in front of them and stood behind them. It stationed itself between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel. There was a cloud and darkness here, but light by night was there, so that one did not come near to the other all night long. Moshe reached his hand out over the sea, and Adonai caused the sea to go back before a strong east wind all night. He made the sea become dry land, and its water was divided in two. When the people of Israel went into the sea on the dry ground, with the water walled up for them on the right and on their left, the Egyptians continued their pursuit, going after them into the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and cavalry, just before dawn. Adonai looked out on the Egyptian army through the column of fire and cloud and threw them into a panic. He caused the wheels of the chariots to break off so that they could move only with difficulty. The Egyptians said, "Adonai is fighting for Israel against the Egyptians. Let's get away from them." Adonai said to Moshe, "Reach your hand out over the sea, and the water will return and cover the Egyptians with their chariots and cavalry." Moshe reached out his hand over the sea, and by dawn the sea had returned to its former depth. The Egyptians tried to flee, but Adonai swept them into the sea. The water came back and covered all the chariots and cavalry of Pharaoh's army who had followed them into the sea. Not even one of them was left. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground in the sea, with the water walled up for them on their right and on their left. On that day, Adonai saved Israel from the Egyptians. Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. When Israel saw the mighty deed that Adonai had performed against the Egyptians, the people feared Adonai, and they believed in Adonai and his servant Moshe. Then Moshe and the people of Israel sang this song to Adonai. "I will sing to Adonai, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he threw in the sea. Yah is my strength and my song, and has become my salvation. This is my God. I will glorify him. My Father God, I will exalt him. Adonai is a warrior. Adonai is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he hurled into the sea, his elite commanders. He drowned in the sea of Sulph. The deep waters covered them. They sank to the depths like a stone. Your right hand, Adonai, is sublimely powerful. Your right hand, Adonai, shatters the foe. By your great majesty, you bring down your enemies. You send out your wrath to consume them like stubble. With a blast from your nostril, the waters piled up. The waters stood up like a wall. The depths of the sea became firm ground. The enemy said, I will pursue and overtake, divide the spoil, and gorge myself on them. I will draw my sword. My hand will destroy them. They blew with your wind. The sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, Adonai, among the mighty? Who is like you, sublime in holiness, awesome in praises, working wonders? You reached out with your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In your love, you led the people, you redeemed. In your strength, you guided them to your holy abode. The people have heard and they tremble. Anguish takes hold of those living in Pleshet. Then the chiefs of Edom are dismayed. Sibadation seizes the heads of Ma'ov. All those living in Canaan are melted away. Terror and dread fall on them. By the might of your arm, they are still as stone. Until your people pass over, Adonai, till the people you purchased pass over. You will bring them in and plant them on the mountain, which is your heritage, the place, Adonai, that you made your abode, the sanctuary, Adonai, which your hand established. Adonai will reign forever and ever. For the horses of Pharaoh went with his chariots and with his cavalry into the sea. But Adonai brought the sea waters back up upon them, while the people of Israel walked on dry land in the midst of the sea. Also Miriam, the prophet, sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out with her with tambourines, dancing, as Miriam sang to them, Sing to Adonai, for he is highly exalted, the horse and its rider, and he threw in the sea. Moshe led Israel onward from the Sea of Suf. They went out into the Shur desert, but after traveling 3 days in the desert, they found no water. They arrived at Marah, but couldn't drink the water there because it was bitter. This is why they called it Marah, bitterness. The people grumbled against Moshe and asked, What are we to drink? Moshe cried to Adonai, and Adonai showed him a certain piece of wood, which, when he threw it into the water, made the water taste good. There Adonai made laws and rules of life for them, and there he tested them. He said, You will listen intently to my voice of Adonai your God, do what he considers right, pay attention to his mitzvot, and observe his laws. I will not afflict you with any of the disease I brought on the Egyptians, because I am Adonai, your healer. They came to Eliam, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and camped there by the water.